Hi guys, another video. I just thought I'd do one on new powder. If you've been doing this for a little while, you realize sometimes those powder charts that you read aren't exactly accurate. So you're sitting there at home with a new powder and you want to try it out and do a powder test, but you're not exactly sure how fast it is. And you can usually guess the low end, to be safe, but guessing exactly where the going over part is, if it gets too hot, it's not always that easy to just guess. So here's a solution to keep you from loading up a whole bunch of rounds that you got to bring home and unload because they're too hot. I'll load little vials of powder like this, and I can just bring my press and my die and just load them at the range, and then they're all pre-loaded, so I can go up in weights until it starts getting to be too much, and I can just stop, and it's a lot easier just to empty a little vial back into my jug and come home and knock out the bullets and ruin the bullets and all that kind of stuff. So this is basically all you need to do that right at the range. A simple press, a die, you got your cases all prepped with primers already in them, ready to go. Your funnel to get the powder into the cases, and away you go. You can work your way up until you feel that bolt getting just a little bit, stiff. You feel that little bit of stiffness raising up that bolt, that's a good place to stop, because anything more than that, you're just wasting your powder, and you're burning up your cases and everything. So I always load until I feel the heavy bolt lift, and then I go back down to the node below that. That way I'm not pushing everything too hard, especially in bench rest, because you want those cases to feed in and come out without any heavy bolt lifts or anything to disturb that rifle, so you can get your shots and cycle your bolt really easy without, if you're lifting a stiff bolt, disturbing the rifle, it's just going to take you longer to get everything back centered so you can get lined up on the target again. So you need to have a nice, easy bolt lift, and powder charge being too heavy is going to mess all that up. So you don't want to be anywhere near peak. You want to be in a nice safe spot where everything cycles really fast. So that's my spiel for this one anyway. I'll probably be at the range tomorrow, and if things go well there, depending on how things go, if I have some decent data, I can show you how I do a powder test, but it's pretty simple. I know a lot of guys all shoot right in one big blob and try to decipher what's the best spot. I don't really do it that way. I shoot across the paper on lines. I can see how it's rising and where it's settling across the paper on lines, but I can show you that tomorrow. But I just wanted to show you these vials so you can see what I'm talking about there. One more thing I just wanted to mention is I don't do any powder testing or deciding what to shoot with a chronograph. I know there's a lot of guys out there that swear by reading the chronograph data and figuring out where their load needs to be and all that kind of thing. I mean, I do have a chronograph, but I don't use it for powder. Powder, I want to see it on the target. The target tells me everything I need to know. After I've got it, after I felt my bolt being heavy and back down to the next node, I might go ahead and check the velocity of what it is after I'm done. But trying to find the velocity in a bunch of random numbers on a piece of paper just doesn't work for me. Another thing doing a powder test is I don't know how many guys trying to do a powder test at 100 yards. Well, there's a guy at the range, and I've been shooting with him for a long time. He just shakes his head at that, and he says, God, I can load the bullets in backwards and get him to go through the same hole at 100 yards, which is kind of true. I mean, everything I shoot, it's like, how can you decide what powder when everything's going through the same hole or a wallered out hole or something? You can't tell anything. You need to get out there. If you're shooting 1,000 yards, you need to get out and do a powder test downrange. I mean, the closest I do a powder test is 300 yards, and the only reason I do 300 yards is because it's the closest range that I'm a member of, and it's only a half an hour away. So once I get a general ballpark of where my node is, and a general powder test like I'm going to do tomorrow, I know pretty much where I want to be within a grain of powder. Then I'll load up that grain of powder on a separate powder test and I'll go out to 600 yards and I'll start working at 600 yards from there out. But 300 initially, just so I don't have to drive so far to, you know, accomplish what I'm trying to do. But 100 yards, I don't learn anything from 100 yards. I mean, everything seems to just go right through the same hole, and I don't learn anything. A wallered out a hole or a little bit off this way or that way on a hole, it just doesn't mean anything to me. Kind of get out of ways. At 600 yards, you start doing a powder test, and all of a sudden, all of those groups open up till you can really see what you're dealing with. Yeah, I mean, it's just night and day. Even at 300 yards, it's really hard to tell what's a really good node and what's not. But it's a good place to find your peak, back down from there, and then you know where to go. So I'm not driving for 2 hours for nothing. But I know there's a whole bunch of guys out there all going to argue with me, but I see guys measuring their holes at 100 yards, but what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. Yeah, 100 yards, just your bullet's barely even going at that point, you know, it's still rising. You need to get it out there where it's got some time in the air to kind of figure out what your node's doing. That's my opinion, whatever it's worth. But to all the guys out there shooting at 100 yards, if that's what works for you, keep doing it. But for me, I'm going to start at 3 and I'm going to work my way out from there. Another thing is saying about that, you kind of need to watch the weather. You can't go out there on a hurricane day when the wind's blowing like crazy and try to do all this. You need to pick a day where the wind settles down a little bit and you can get some accurate data. It doesn't have to be perfect wind, but at least good enough that you can get a couple shots off quick in the same air. And watch the conditions a little bit like you're in a match, and all that practice, you know, just like you're in a match, waiting for your conditions, shooting your shots, even in practice, it really adds up for match time. So anyway, that's enough for this one. Keep the group small.